February 1st, 2026, 11 a.m., a church in Tucson, Arizona, live streams its Sunday morning service. One seat remains empty, the same seat Nancy Guthrie has occupied every single Sunday for the past 42 years. A church member picks up the phone, calls the family. Nancy didn't log in this morning. Is everything okay? At 11:56 a.m., Nancy's relatives arrive at her Catalina Foothills home. The front door is locked. They use their key, walk inside. The house is silent. Nancy's purse sits on the kitchen counter. Her phone is charging by her bed. Her medications, the ones she needs every single day to stay alive, are lined up in the bathroom. Her car is in the garage. Her cane leans against the hallway wall. Nancy is gone. At 12:03 p.m., someone dials 911. By 12:15 p.m., deputies from the Pima County Sheriff's Department are on scene. And by 2 p.m., this missing person case becomes a criminal investigation because there's blood on the front porch. Not a lot, but enough. Blood on the door frame, blood inside near the entrance, and when investigators pull the security footage, they discover something that changes everything. At 1:47 that morning, a figure in black approached Nancy's front door. Gloves, mask, baseball cap. Someone who knew exactly where the camera was positioned. Someone who tried to disable it. Someone who moved like they'd been to this house before. At 2:28 a.m., Nancy's pacemaker transmitted its final signal, severe cardiac distress. Then nothing. And the last person to see Nancy Guthrie alive? Her son-in-law. The man who dropped her off at 9:48 p.m. after a family dinner. A dinner where, according to unverified reports, Nancy had been asked for money. She said no. Here's the question that's haunting this investigation. Did refusing that loan request cost Nancy Guthrie her life? This isn't a random abduction. This isn't a burglary gone wrong. This isn't some crime of opportunity where the wrong person was in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is about an 84-year-old woman, independent, sharp as a tack, according to the sheriff's exact words, living alone in a $1 million home she's owned since 1975. A woman whose daughter, Savannah Guthrie, is the co-anchor of NBC's Today Show, worth an estimated $40 million, a household name. A woman whose other daughter, Annie, and son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, lived just 2 miles away in a home worth $650,000. A woman who, if reports are true, had a conversation about money the night before she disappeared. A loan request, a refusal. Words that might have sealed her fate. But we'll come back to that conversation in detail because the most revealing part of this story happens when you trace the money. When you look at the property values. When you examine the power of attorney documents signed 8 months before Nancy vanished. When you analyze the ransom demands that came afterward. $6 million in Bitcoin from someone who knew exactly how much this family could afford. Blood was found at Nancy's front door. Her doorbell camera was disabled at 1:47 a.m. Her pacemaker registered severe cardiac distress at 2:28 a.m. And investigators have footage of a masked figure. Someone who moved with purpose. Someone who knew the layout of that property. Someone who knew Nancy's routine. Someone who knew she'd be alone. What happened at that family dinner on January 31st? What did Nancy refuse? And who decided that refusal meant she had to disappear? Drop a comment below and tell me what you think happened, because this case has divided the internet, turned armchair detectives into forensic analysts, made millions of people question when family becomes dangerous, And subscribe, because the DNA evidence that just came back this week could break this case wide open. When it does, you need to be here. Nancy Ellen Long was born January 27, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky. Let me tell you who she really was before she became a headline, before she became a case number, before her face appeared on missing person posters across Arizona. Nancy wasn't some fragile elderly woman who wandered off confused. She was sharp as a tack. Those were Sheriff Chris Nanos's exact words at a press conference. No cognitive decline, no memory issues, no confusion, no dementia. At 84, yes, she had limited mobility. She needed a cane to walk. She couldn't make it more than 50 yards without help. But mentally, Nancy Guthrie could run circles around most people half her age. She could recite phone numbers from memory, recall conversations from weeks ago, manage her own finances, make her own decisions. She moved to Tucson, Arizona in the early 1970s with her husband, Charles Guthrie. Charles worked in mining exploration, dangerous work, important work. They built a life together in the desert, bought a house in Catalina foothills in 1975 for $85,000. A modest price back then. That same house today, worth over $1 million. They raised 3 children in that house. Savannah, Annie, Cameron, 3 kids who would grow up to lead very different lives. But in 1988, tragedy struck the Guthrie family. Charles died during a mining exploration trip in Mexico. He was only 49 years old. Nancy was 46. Suddenly a widow with 3 children to raise alone. No husband, no partner, no one to share the burden. But Nancy didn't crumble. She didn't fall apart. She stayed in that house. The house she and Charles picked out together. The house where they'd raised their babies. The house that held 50 years of memories. Every room a reminder of what she'd lost, but also what she'd built. Nancy never remarried. Friends asked her about it over the years. She'd smile and say no one could replace Charles. She meant it. Nancy lived independently for 38 years after Charles died. Drove herself everywhere until 2024. After that, she used Uber. On January 31st, 2026, the night she disappeared, she took an Uber at 5:32 p.m. to her daughter Annie's house for dinner. Not unusual. She did this regularly. Nancy had routines, structure, predictability, church every Sunday. For 42 years, she never missed a service. If she couldn't attend in person, she'd live stream it, watch from home. But she never missed. Every Thursday morning, she'd review her bank statements, go through her mail, pay her bills. She was meticulous about her finances, organized, careful, independent. Her 3 children each carved their own path. Savannah became the famous one, the successful one, NBC Today show co-anchor, married to Michael Feldman, a public relations consultant and former political aide. 2 children, lives in New York City. Her estimated net worth, $40 million, built through decades of journalism, morning television, book deals, speaking engagements. Savannah is a household name, recognized everywhere. Her life is public, scrutinized, every outfit analyzed, every word dissected. But by all accounts, she remained close to her mother. Visited when she could, called regularly, sent photos of the grandchildren. Annie took a different path, quieter, more artistic. She's a poet, an author, a jeweler. She works as the publicity and marketing director for Core Press, works at the University of Arizona Poetry Center. Her world is words, literature, small press publications, poetry readings, art shows. She lives in Tucson with her husband, Tommaso Cioni. Their home is worth an estimated $650,000 to $1 million. Just 2 miles from Nancy's house. Close enough to help. Close enough to visit regularly. Close enough to have dinner on a Saturday night. Cameron, the youngest, is a retired F-16 fighter pilot. He lives a private life, stays out of the spotlight. His net worth is unknown. He doesn't court attention, doesn't give interviews, just lives quietly somewhere in America. By all accounts, Nancy's relationship with her children was close, loving, supportive. Savannah visited when her schedule allowed. Annie saw her mother often, helped with errands, spent time together. This was, by all appearances, a loving family. But here's what friends and neighbors say about Nancy. She was proud, fiercely independent. She didn't ask for help unless absolutely necessary, and Nancy didn't give handouts. Not to her children, not to anyone. In a 2015 interview on the Today Show, Savannah Guthrie described her parents' approach to money. She said, and this is a direct quote, "My parents were like, don't come looking for money and don't be asking for an allowance to do things you're supposed to be doing, like make your bed. If you want money to spend, get a job." That philosophy shaped all 3 children. Work for what you want. Don't expect handouts. Be financially independent. Don't rely on anyone else. Earn your way. Nancy and Charles instilled that in their kids from day one. So when reports surfaced months after Nancy's disappearance that Annie and Tommaso Cioni had allegedly asked Nancy for a loan in late January 2026 and that Nancy had refused, people who knew her said it tracked. It made sense. Nancy would help in a genuine crisis, a medical emergency, a true catastrophe. But she wouldn't enable. She wouldn't fund lifestyles she didn't approve of. She wouldn't throw good money after bad. According to unverified sources close to the family, Nancy allegedly told Annie and Tommaso she didn't want to start taking loans against her house anymore. That phrase. Start taking loans against her house anymore. As if there had been requests before, as if this was a pattern, as if Annie and Tommaso had asked for money multiple times, as if Nancy had given before and was now drawing a line. But we'll come back to that alleged conversation because understanding what happened that night requires understanding the financial pressure building in Annie and Tommaso's lives, understanding what was at stake. By January 31st, 2026, Nancy was 84 years old. Limited mobility, but fierce independence. She lived alone in that Catalina Foothills home, the home she'd shared with Charles, the home where she'd raised her children, the home she had no intention of ever leaving. And then everything changed. January 31st, 2026. 5:32 p.m. Nancy Guthrie opens her phone, orders an Uber, destination, her daughter Annie's home in Tucson, just 2 miles away, a 5-minute drive. The Uber arrives. Nancy uses her cane to get to the car. The driver helps her in. They make small talk. The weather, the weekend, normal conversation. At 5:37 p.m., Nancy arrives at Annie and Tommaso's house. It's a regular Saturday night family dinner. Annie, Tommaso, Nancy. Just the 3 of them. They eat together. They talk. On the surface, it seems normal. Just another family dinner. But according to investigative reporter Jonathan Lee Riches, who has been covering this case since day one, something significant happened during or shortly before that dinner. Something that would change everything. Annie and Tommaso allegedly asked Nancy for a loan. The exact amount? Unknown, not disclosed, not verified. The specific reason for needing the money? Unclear. Mortgage payments, credit card debt, medical bills, car repairs, home renovations? No one outside that house knows for certain. But according to sources who spoke to Riches, and this is unverified, Nancy didn't want to start taking loans against her house anymore. That phrasing suggests this wasn't the first request, that there had been others, that Nancy had helped before, maybe multiple times, and now she was done. She was drawing a line. Whatever was said during that conversation, however it played out, the dinner eventually ended. Nancy was ready to go home. At 9:48 p.m., Tommaso Cioni gets in his car. Nancy gets in the passenger seat. When he drives her the 2 miles back to her house. Security footage from a neighbor's camera and digital timestamps from Nancy's garage door system confirm the timeline. At 9:48 p.m., Tommaso's car pulls into Nancy's driveway. Nancy gets out, uses her cane to walk to her front door. She unlocks it, steps inside. At 9:50 p.m., Nancy's garage door closes. Tommaso drives away. Surveillance cameras capture his car leaving the neighborhood. Nancy is home, safe, alone. The house is quiet. She's probably tired, probably gets ready for bed, takes her medications, brushes her teeth, changes into her nightgown, gets into bed, maybe reads for a bit, maybe watches television, maybe just closes her eyes. But at some point, Nancy Guthrie falls asleep in her own bed, in the house she's lived in for 50 years, the house where she feels safe, secure, protected. But she's not safe, because 4 hours later, everything changes. At 1:47 a.m. on February 1st, 2026, Nancy's doorbell camera detects motion. The footage, which the FBI would later release to the public, shows a figure approaching the front door. The figure is wearing all black. Black pants, black jacket, black gloves, a black mask covering the face, a black baseball cap pulled low, and a backpack, later identified by investigators as an Ozark Trail 25-liter hiker pack, available at Walmart for about $20. The figure isn't rushing. They're not running. They're not panicked. They're methodical, deliberate, purposeful. They walk straight toward the front door. And here's what's chilling. The figure knows exactly where the doorbell camera is positioned. They walk right up to it, reach up with a gloved hand. Try to knock the camera loose with light taps. Tap, 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 testing it, seeing if it'll come off the mount. It doesn't budge. The camera is secured properly, so the figure improvises. They grab foliage from a nearby potted plant, one of Nancy's plants, the one she waters every week. They take leaves and branches and stuff them in front of the camera lens, blocking the view, covering it up. Now here's the question investigators have been asking for months. Is this amateur hour? Is this someone who doesn't know what they're doing? Someone who's inexperienced with this kind of crime? Or is this someone trying to make it look amateur? Someone who knows exactly what they're doing, but wants it to appear clumsy? Incompetent? The work of a stranger instead of someone with inside knowledge? The FBI released this footage on February 10th, 2026. The still images went viral within hours. Millions of people saw them, analyzed them, obsessed over them. Online sleuths zoomed in, enhanced the images, studied every pixel, tried to identify the figure, estimated height based on the doorframe measurements, 5 feet 9 inches to 5 feet 10 inches. Average build, not particularly large, not particularly small, and here's a detail that got everyone talking. A dark mustache visible beneath the mask. You can see it in the enhanced images. Dark facial hair. At 2:12 a.m., the doorbell camera detects motion again. The FBI recovered additional footage showing the figure moving near the property, walking around, checking windows, looking for entry points. At 2:28 a.m., something critical happens. Nancy's bedside pacemaker monitor misses its scheduled transmission. Let me explain what this means because it's important. Nancy had a cardiac pacemaker implanted in her chest, a modern device, the kind that monitors heart function 24 hours a day. It tracks heart rate, rhythm, any irregularities, any problems, and it transmits that data automatically to her cardiologist every single day, like clockwork. That night at 2:28 a.m., the transmission doesn't happen. The pacemaker either stops working, stops transmitting, or Nancy's heart stops. Those are the only three possibilities. Either the pacemaker was physically damaged, someone hit Nancy hard enough to damage the device in her chest, or Nancy's heart stopped. Cardiac arrest, heart attack, death. Or Nancy was moved somewhere the pacemaker couldn't transmit, somewhere without cell service, deep in the desert, underground, somewhere remote. None of those options are good. All of them suggest violence, trauma, something catastrophic happening to Nancy Guthrie at 2:28 in the morning. The next morning, February 1st, 2026, is Sunday. Nancy's church in Tucson live streams their 10 a.m. service, like always, like they do every single week. Nancy has been a member of this church for over 4 decades, 42 years, never missed a service. If she's too sick to attend in person, she logs in from home, watches on her computer, participates remotely, but she never misses. At 11 a.m., a church member is reviewing the live stream attendance. Nancy's name isn't on the list. She didn't log in. That's unusual. That's concerning. The church member picks up the phone, calls someone in Nancy's family. Nancy didn't join the service this morning. Is she okay? Is everything all right? At 11:56 a.m., family members arrive at Nancy's Catalina Foothills home. They pull up to the house, get out of the car, walk to the front door. It's locked. That's normal. Nancy always locks her doors. They have a key. They use it. Open the door, step inside. The house is silent, eerily quiet. Nancy? They call out. No answer. They walk through the house. The kitchen. Nancy's purse is sitting on the counter, right where she always leaves it. They check the bedroom. Nancy's phone is plugged in next to her bed. Charging. The screen is dark. They check the bathroom. Nancy's medications are lined up on the counter. Pills she takes every single day. Medication she needs to stay alive. Heart medication. Blood pressure medication. All of it sitting there, untaken. They check the garage. Nancy's car is there, parked. A key's hanging on the hook by the door. They check the hallway. Nancy's cane is leaning against the wall, the cane she needs to walk, the cane she can't go more than 50 yards without. Nancy Guthrie is gone, but everything she needs to survive is still here. Her purse, her phone, her medications, her car, her mobility aid. At 12:03 p.m., someone dials 911. At 12:15 p.m., deputies from the Pima County Sheriff's Department arrive at the scene. They secure the area, start looking around, and almost immediately they notice something. Blood on the front porch. Not a pool of blood, not a massive amount, but enough. Dark red, dried, definitely blood. There's more blood on the doorframe, a smear, as if someone bleeding was moved through the doorway, as if someone was dragged, pulled, carried. There's blood inside the house too, near the entrance. Small drops, spatter patterns. By 2 p.m. on February 1st, this case is officially escalated to a criminal investigation. This isn't a missing person case anymore. This is something else, something violent, something sinister. By February 2nd, Sheriff Chris Nanos holds a press conference. He stands in front of cameras, reporters, microphones. He looks tired, concerned. He says, And this is a direct quote. At this point, investigators believe she was taken from her home against her will, possibly in the middle of the night. She couldn't walk 50 yards by herself. This is not someone who wandered off. The FBI joins the investigation almost immediately. When a vulnerable adult disappears under suspicious circumstances, when there's evidence of violence, when blood is found at the scene, the FBI gets involved. This is now a federal kidnapping case. Agents from the FBI's Tucson field office are assigned. Resources are deployed. The full weight of federal law enforcement descends on this case. DNA testing is conducted on the blood found at Nancy's home. The results come back quickly. The blood belongs to Nancy. Type O positive, her blood type. Forensic analysis of the blood patterns tells investigators more. The spatter patterns, the location, the volume. Nancy sustained blunt force trauma. She was struck hard, at least twice, maybe more. The wounds weren't immediately fatal. She didn't die instantly, but they were serious, significant, life-threatening. And here's what the forensic team concludes. Nancy fought back. There are signs of a struggle. Defensive wounds. Blood in multiple locations. Nancy Guthrie didn't go quietly. She didn't submit. At 84 years old with limited mobility, she fought. She resisted. She tried to survive. Within 24 hours of Nancy's disappearance, something bizarre happens. Something that makes this case even stranger. Ransom notes start arriving, but not to the family. That's the bizarre part. Ransom notes aren't sent directly to Savannah Guthrie. They're not sent to Annie. They're not sent to Cameron. They're sent to media outlets. TMZ receives a note. Local Tucson news stations receive notes. Harvey Levin, the founder of TMZ, goes public with the information. He says they received a ransom note demanding millions of dollars in Bitcoin. The note includes specific details about Nancy's home, details only someone who was there would know. What Nancy was wearing the night she disappeared, the layout of her house, personal information. The demand, $6 million in Bitcoin. That's the price for Nancy's safe return. $6 million, transferred to a specific cryptocurrency wallet. The deadline, February 9th, 2026. Pay by then or else. Former FBI agents interviewed by the media call this highly unusual. Ransom notes typically go to the family, directly, privately, not through the media, not publicly. This person wants attention. They want public pressure. They want the story in the news. They want to force the family's hand. Make it impossible to negotiate quietly. Make it impossible to involve law enforcement without the world watching. Savannah Guthrie is devastated. She immediately steps away from her duties at the Today Show. She was scheduled to co-host the opening ceremonies of the 2026 Winter Olympics, a huge assignment, a career highlight. She cancels everything. Nothing matters except finding her mother. On February 4th, Savannah and her siblings, Annie and Cameron, release a video statement. It's posted on social media, shared millions of times. Savannah speaks directly to the camera. Her voice is shaking. She says, "We received your message and we understand. Please reach out to us. We need proof of life. We need to know our mother is alive and safe." The video is heartbreaking, raw, authentic. 3 adult children begging for their mother's life. But no proof of life comes. The deadline approaches. February 9th. No contact from the kidnapper. No follow-up message. No proof Nancy is alive. On February 7th, 2 days before the deadline, the family releases another video. Savannah again speaks. She's crying. She says, "We will pay. This is very valuable to us. Please return our mother." We're ready to do whatever you ask. February 9th arrives. The deadline passes. Nothing happens. No contact. No instructions. No proof of life. No Nancy. Meanwhile, investigators are doing what they always do in cases like this, looking at everyone, family members, friends, neighbors, anyone who had contact with Nancy in the days and weeks before she disappeared. It's standard procedure. Statistics show that in cases involving violence against elderly victims, the perpetrator is usually someone known to the victim, family, caregiver, someone close. So investigators look at everyone, but public attention, media attention, internet attention, it all zeroes in on one person, Tommaso Cioni, Annie's husband, Nancy's son-in-law, the last known person to see Nancy alive, the person who dropped her off at 9:48 p.m. on January 31st. The person who drove away at 9:50 p.m., the person who knows Nancy's house, knows her routine, knows she lives alone. On February 5th, journalist Ashley Banfield drops a bombshell on her podcast. She claims, citing an unnamed law enforcement source, that Tommaso Cioni is being investigated as a prime suspect in Nancy's disappearance. The podcast episode goes viral. Everyone is talking about it. Tommaso Cioni, the son-in-law. Did he do it? Sheriff Chris Nanos immediately pushes back. He holds a press conference. He looks angry. He calls Banfield's reporting reckless. He says, and this is a direct quote, "We haven't named any suspects. We're looking at everyone who had contact with Nancy. That's standard procedure. That's responsible police work." But the damage is done. The internet explodes. Reddit threads, Facebook groups, Twitter threads. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone is investigating. People start digging. Public records, property values, financial documents, court records, social media profiles. Everything is fair game. And here's what amateur sleuths discover. In May 2025, 8 months before Nancy disappeared, Tommaso Cioni signed a durable power of attorney, granting Annie control over his financial and property affairs. The document is public record. Anyone can find it. Legal experts interviewed by the media say, this is routine. It's common for married couples to give each other power of attorney, especially for real estate transactions, estate planning, medical decisions. It's normal, but the timing raises eyebrows. Why would Tommaso, a middle school teacher in Tucson, give his wife power of attorney in May 2025? What was happening in their lives? What were they planning? One investigator, St. James Hartline, an experienced investigator and citizen journalist, offers several theories. He says, either Tommaso has mental health concerns and wants Annie to be able to manage his affairs if something happens, or he was planning something illegal and wanted to protect his assets in advance by putting them in Annie's name, or he was preparing to flee, to disappear, and wanted to make sure Annie could handle everything in his absence. None of these theories are confirmed. They're speculation, but they fuel the fire. Public records also reveal property values. Nancy's home in Catalina Foothills, purchased in 1975 for $85,000. Today it's worth over $1 million. Probably $1.1 or $1.2 million based on recent comparable sales in the neighborhood. That's massive appreciation. Decades of real estate value growth. Annie and Tommaso's home, also in Tucson, worth an estimated $650,000 to $1 million depending on the source. Recent improvements, market conditions, location. There is a significant gap. Nancy's property has appreciated more, is worth more, and with Savannah Guthrie's net worth estimated at $40 million, Nancy's estate would likely be divided among the 3 children. Savannah doesn't need the money. She's wealthy. But Annie and Cameron would each inherit their share. Annie stands to inherit roughly $300,000 to $400,000 from the house alone, not counting Nancy's savings, investments, life insurance policies, retirement accounts, personal possessions. The total inheritance could be substantial, $600,000, maybe more. That's a motive. Financial desperation plus a large inheritance equals motive. But motive isn't proof. Motive doesn't equal guilt. On May 2nd, 2026, 3 months after Nancy's disappearance, investigative reporter Jonathan Lee Riches posts on X, formerly known as Twitter. Riches has been following this case obsessively, posting updates daily, sharing theories, analyzing evidence. He has a large following, thousands of people waiting for his next post. On May 2nd, he writes, I was told by someone very close to the family that Annie asked Nancy Guthrie for money before her disappearance. The post gets thousands of retweets, tens of thousands of likes. Everyone is talking about it. He follows up minutes later with another post. Nancy Guthrie told them no. She will not be giving them money. So I'm told. Another post. Nancy didn't want to start taking loans against her house anymore. That's what she said. The phrase, start taking loans against her house anymore, is devastating. It suggests a history, a pattern, multiple requests, multiple loans, Nancy enabling Annie and Tommaso's lifestyle, Nancy bailing them out, until finally she said no. She drew a line. She refused, and 48 hours later, she disappeared. Now here's the critical part. No law enforcement agency has confirmed any of this. The Pima County Sheriff's Department hasn't verified it. The FBI hasn't commented on it. No mainstream media outlet has independently confirmed it. This is all based on Rich's unnamed source. Someone very close to the family. But who? A neighbor? A friend? Another family member? A church member? Someone in law enforcement leaking information? We don't know. But if the loan request story is true, if Nancy really did refuse to give Annie and Tommaso money the night before she disappeared, that's a motive. That's a reason. That's the kind of financial pressure that can drive people to do unthinkable things. On February 10th, the FBI releases the doorbell camera footage publicly. They post still images on social media. On the FBI's official website, they send it to news outlets. The images go viral immediately. Everyone sees them. The masked figure, 5 feet 9 inches to 5 feet 10 inches tall, based on measurements against the doorframe. Average build, not heavy, not thin, just average, and that dark mustache visible beneath the mask. People immediately start comparing the figure to Tommaso Cioni. Tommaso is 5 feet 10 inches tall, an average build, and he has a dark mustache, a prominent mustache, visible in all his photos. Online sleuths put together comparison images, side by side, the figure in the footage next to photos of Tommaso. The build matches, the height matches, the gait matches. He knew exactly where the camera was because he's been to that house dozens of times. The speculation becomes overwhelming. But here's the problem that investigators can't get around, the problem that keeps this case from being solved. DNA recovered from Nancy's home doesn't match Tommaso Cioni. It doesn't match Annie Guthrie. It doesn't match any immediate family member. Crime scene investigators found DNA at Nancy's house, on surfaces, on objects, in the blood, mixed DNA. DNA from multiple people. Some of it belongs to Nancy, obviously. It's her house. Her blood But there's other DNA unknown. DNA that doesn't match anyone in the family. That DNA is being analyzed at a private forensic lab in Florida that works with the Pima County Sheriff's Department. Advanced testing. The kind that can build a profile from microscopic samples, skin cells, hair follicles, touch DNA. After the Florida lab finishes their analysis, the samples are sent to the FBI. The FBI has even more advanced technology, more sophisticated testing, more comprehensive databases. They can do things local labs can't. But as of May 2026, over 100 days after Nancy disappeared, no matches have been found. The DNA doesn't match anyone in the system, doesn't match any known criminal, doesn't match any family member. It's a dead end. For now. On February 13th, authorities conduct a dramatic raid. A house 2 miles from Nancy's property. Still in the Catalina foothills area. Close by. SWAT teams are deployed. Armored vehicles. Heavily armed officers. Roads are blocked off. The entire neighborhood is shut down for 4 hours. Residents are told to stay inside. News helicopters circle overhead. Cameras capture everything. 2 people are removed from the house, taken in for questioning, transported to the sheriff's department. A Range Rover is seized from the parking lot of a nearby Culver's restaurant, towed away, impounded, processed for evidence. The media goes wild. Is this the break in the case? Did investigators find the perpetrator? One of the 2 people taken in for questioning is released within 24 hours. The other is released shortly after. Sheriff Nanos makes a statement. They're not involved. We've ruled them out. What about the Range Rover? What about the raid? What was that about? Investigators don't elaborate. They don't explain. They just say those individuals aren't connected to Nancy's disappearance. Dead end. But during the search, investigators find something. Black gloves near the property. Gloves that appear to match the gloves worn by the masked figure in the doorbell camera footage. Same style, same color. DNA testing is conducted on the gloves. The results come back. The DNA on the gloves belongs to a local restaurant worker, someone who has no connection to Nancy Guthrie, no connection to the case. Sheriff Nanos confirms that individual is not considered part of this investigation. Another dead end. People start digging into Tommaso Cione's personal life, his background, his friends, his associates. They discover he's a musician, plays in a band. The band is called Early Black. It's a local Tucson band, rock music. They play small venues, bars, clubs, nothing major. And Tommaso's bandmate, his friend, is a man named Dominic Evans. Dominic Aaron Lee Evans. Online investigators run background checks, pull court records, and they find something interesting. Dominic Evans has a criminal record, a significant criminal record: felony burglary, armed robbery, theft, embezzlement, DUI, multiple arrests, multiple convictions. He's done time. He knows how to break into houses. He knows how to commit crimes. Online communities explode with this information. Evans knows how to break into houses. Maybe he helped Tommaso. Maybe Tommaso hired him. Maybe Evans is the masked figure. The speculation is rampant, but here's the problem. There's zero evidence linking Dominic Evans to Nancy's disappearance. His DNA hasn't been found at the scene. He hasn't been questioned by police. His name doesn't appear in any official documents. The only connection is that he's Tommaso's friend. That's it. Guilt by association. But investigators follow every lead, check every possibility. If Evans was involved, they'll find evidence. So far, they haven't. By March 2026, Sheriff Chris Nanos makes an important statement. He says, "We have formally cleared the immediate family." The immediate family, that means Savannah, Annie, Cameron, Tommaso as Annie's husband. They've been cleared, ruled out, no longer under suspicion. But Sheriff Nanos adds something important. He says, clearance doesn't mean exoneration. We're still looking at everyone. The investigation is ongoing. What does that mean? How can someone be cleared but not exonerated? Here's what investigators mean. The DNA evidence doesn't match family members. They didn't leave DNA at the scene. That suggests they weren't physically present during the crime. They didn't commit the violent act. But that doesn't mean they weren't involved. It doesn't mean they didn't plan it. It doesn't mean they didn't hire someone. DNA proves they didn't do it themselves. It doesn't prove they didn't orchestrate it. The internet isn't convinced. Online communities continue to scrutinize Annie and Tommaso. Every public statement, every social media post, every movement, people are watching, analyzing, theorizing. Based on all the evidence, based on the timeline, based on the financial pressure, here's what investigators and independent analysts believe could have happened. This is theory, speculation, not proven fact. Theory number 1. Financial desperation leads to murder. Annie and Tommaso are struggling financially. Tommaso is a middle school teacher. Teachers in Arizona don't make much money. Average salary is maybe $45,000 to $50,000 a year. Annie works in marketing for a small press, works at a poetry center. Not high-paying jobs. They own a home worth $650,000 to $1 million. That means a mortgage, property taxes, homeowner's insurance, maintenance, repairs. It's expensive. Maybe they have credit card debt, car payments, student loans, medical bills. The normal financial pressures of middle-class American life. In late January 2026, they need money urgently. They ask Nancy for a loan, not the first time. Nancy has helped before, but this time she says no. She's done. She's not going to keep bailing them out. She's not going to take loans against her house. That refusal triggers a decision, a desperate decision, a terrible decision. Nancy is 84, limited mobility. She can't fight back effectively. She lives alone. She's predictable. Church every Sunday, home every night, routine, consistent. And if Nancy dies, Annie inherits at least $300,000 from the house. More from savings, investments, life insurance, maybe $600,000 total, maybe more. That money solves all their problems, pays off debts, saves the house, gives them breathing room. On January 31st, the dinner happens, the loan request, the refusal. Tommaso drives Nancy home at 9:48 p.m. He knows her routine. He knows she goes to bed around 10:30 p.m. He knows she'll be asleep by midnight. He knows she is alone. He returns at 1:47 a.m., or maybe he never left. Maybe he waited. Parked down the street, watched the lights go off, waited until he knew she was asleep. The figure approaches, wearing the mask, the gloves, disables the camera, enters the home. Maybe Tommaso has a key. Maybe he knows where Nancy hides the spare. Maybe the door is unlocked. Nancy wakes up. There's a confrontation. Maybe she recognizes the voice. Maybe she doesn't. Nancy is struck. There's blood. A struggle. Nancy fights back. But at 84, with limited mobility, she can't win. At 2:28 a.m., Nancy's heart can't handle the stress. The pacemaker registers severe distress. Nancy is either dead or dying. The body is removed, transported somewhere. The Arizona desert is vast, millions of acres, remote areas. Places no one goes. Nancy could be buried anywhere. The ransom notes are sent later, part of the misdirection. Make it look like a kidnapping for money. Make it look like stranger abduction. Divert attention away from family. The problem with this theory, the DNA doesn't match Tommaso. If he was there, he was careful, wore gloves, didn't leave evidence. And would Tommaso really kill his mother-in-law, risk everything, life in prison, death penalty, for money? Theory number 2, hired hit. Annie and Tommaso want Nancy gone. They need the inheritance, but they're not willing to do it themselves. Too risky, too dangerous, too difficult. They know Dominic Evans, Tommaso's bandmate. Evans has a criminal record. He knows how to break into houses. He's done it before. He's been arrested for burglary, robbery, theft. He knows the game. Hey, maybe they approach him. Maybe they offer him money. $10,000, $20,000, a percentage of the inheritance. Evans agrees, or maybe Evans knows someone else. Another criminal. Someone who does this kind of work. On January 31st, Tommaso drives Nancy home, unlocks the door, makes sure she gets inside safely, but he leaves the back door unlocked or a window unlatched. He gives Evans the layout, the routine, where Nancy sleeps, where the cameras are. Evans arrives at 1:47 a.m. wearing the mask, the gloves. He enters the house. Nancy wakes up. There's a confrontation, violence, blood. Nancy fights but loses. Evans removes the body, disposes of it somewhere, gets paid. The ransom notes are part of the plan. Misdirection. Make it look like stranger abduction. This theory explains the DNA. It's Evans's DNA, or his accomplice's DNA. Not family, DNA. This theory explains the amateurish camera tampering. Evans isn't a professional hitman. He's a small-time criminal who's in over his head. This theory explains the masked figure's knowledge of the property. Tommaso gave him all the information. The problem with this theory, there's zero evidence linking Evans to the scene. His DNA hasn't been found. He hasn't been questioned. And why would Tommaso risk involving someone else? More people means more loose ends, more chances to get caught. Evans could flip, testify, take a deal. It's too risky. Theory number 3. Stranger abduction for ransom. This is the theory law enforcement initially worked. Nancy's daughter is Savannah Guthrie, famous television anchor, worth $40 million. That makes Nancy a target. Someone researches the family, discovers Nancy lives alone in Tucson, vulnerable, one elderly, isolated, perfect target for kidnapping. They plan an abduction, watch the house, learn her routine, know when she's alone, demand $6 million in ransom. That's less than Savannah's net worth. Reasonable, achievable. The family would pay to get Nancy back. January 31st, they make their move. Late at night when Nancy is alone, asleep, vulnerable. Nancy resists. There's a struggle. She's injured, maybe killed accidentally. The perpetrator panics, removes the body, sends ransom notes anyway, hopes the family will pay without proof of life. The problem with this theory, if this was a professional kidnapping for ransom, where's the follow-through? Where's the negotiation? Why send notes to the media instead of directly to the family? Why no proof of life? Why no continued contact? Professional kidnappers don't act this way. They negotiate. They provide proof. They stay in contact. This feels too sloppy. Theory number 4. The truth is worse. Former FBI profiler Dr. Ann Burgess was interviewed for a News Nation special on the case. She offered a chilling theory. She said, the person in the footage may have been killed after the encounter. Think about what that means. What if the masked figure was hired? What if someone paid them to kidnap Nancy? But after it's done, after Nancy is dead, the person who hired them eliminates the witness. kills the hired gun to tie up loose ends. That would explain why no arrests have been made. The physical perpetrator, the person who actually killed Nancy, is dead, murdered by whoever orchestrated this. The person who planned it, who benefits from it, is still alive, still free, still walking around. And there's no evidence tying them to the crime because they never touched Nancy, never entered her house, never left DNA. They just planned it, paid for it, then eliminated the evidence. Chilling, absolutely chilling, but possible. It's now May 2026, over 100 days since Nancy Guthrie disappeared. No body has been found, despite extensive searches. Hundreds of law enforcement personnel, search and rescue teams, cadaver dogs, drones, helicopters, thermal imaging, ground-penetrating radar, volunteers combing the desert, nothing. No arrests have been made, no charges filed, no suspects publicly named. The investigation remains active. The FBI is still involved. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has dedicated detectives working this full time. Over 3,000 tips have been received. Every single one is being investigated, followed up on, checked out. DNA evidence is being processed. Advanced testing. The kind that can build a genetic profile from microscopic samples. The kind that can identify distant relatives through genealogy databases. The same technology used to catch the Golden State Killer. It takes time, months, but it works. Sheriff Chris Nanos released a statement this week. He said, "We are closer to solving this case. Progress is being made. We have evidence. We have leads. We're following every avenue." But he won't elaborate, won't provide details, won't name names, active investigation, can't compromise it. Savannah Guthrie returned to the Today Show in early April 2026. She took a 2-month leave, 2 months away from work to search for her mother. When she came back, NBC implemented strict protocols. If breaking news about her mother's case develops during the broadcast, Savannah is immediately pulled off set, sequestered, taken to a private room. Another anchor handles the story on air. They don't want Savannah learning about developments in her mother's case live on television. They don't want her breaking down on camera. It's a small mercy, a bit of protection in an impossible situation. In March 2026, Savannah gave her first interview about the disappearance. She sat down with her former co-host, Hoda Khattab, someone she trusts, someone she feels safe with. The interview aired in 3 parts. Savannah described the experience as unbearable. She said not knowing is worse than anything. She said the waiting is torture. She said she just wants her mother home. On February 24th, the Guthrie family offered a $1 million reward for information leading to Nancy's recovery. $1 million. That's how much they're willing to pay, how desperate they are. The FBI added another $100,000. Total reward, $1.1 million. For information, for answers, for closure. Still nothing. No credible tips, no breakthroughs. The family also donated $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, a way to honor Nancy, a way to help other families going through this nightmare. Tommaso Cioni has not been charged with anything. Annie Guthrie has not been charged with anything. Dominic Evans has not been charged with anything. Formally, they've all been cleared. But informally, the scrutiny continues. Sheriff Nanos has told Tucson residents there's no threat to the public. This wasn't a random crime. Whoever did this knew Nancy. Targeted her specifically. This wasn't a serial predator, wasn't someone randomly attacking elderly women. This was personal. Pima County Sheriff's Department patrol cars are still regularly seen in the neighborhood near Annie and Tommaso's home. Neighbors report seeing deputies driving by, watching, monitoring. They haven't stopped watching, one neighbor told a local news outlet. The patrol cars come by every few hours. Online communities remain obsessed with this case. Reddit has multiple active threads, Facebook groups with thousands of members, Twitter hashtags, everyone analyzing every detail, every piece of evidence, every public statement. Some believe Tommaso is guilty. Some believe he's being framed. Some think Nancy is still alive somewhere, held captive. Most believe she's dead. The alleged loan request, the she said no claim, has never been officially confirmed. No law enforcement agency has verified it, but it's become central to public perception of this case. The motive, the reason, the spark that lit the fire. A California man named Derek Colella was arrested in February 2026, charged with transmitting ransom demands in interstate commerce, charged with using a telecommunications device to harass. He sent fake ransom texts to the Guthrie family, pretending to be the kidnapper. He told investigators he was just following the case on TV. He pulled the family's contact information from a cyber website. He thought it would be exciting, interesting. He didn't think about the consequences. His trial is set for June 23, 2026. He's facing federal charges, prison time. The real ransom notes, the ones sent to TMZ and other media outlets, still unverified. Investigators still don't know if they were real, if they came from the actual perpetrator, or if they were hoaxes, copycats, attention seekers. No one knows. Right now, at this very moment, Nancy Guthrie's body is somewhere in the Arizona desert, miles and miles of empty land, cactus, sand, rock, heat. Or maybe she's in Mexico. 60 miles south of Tucson is the border. Easy to cross, easy to disappear, or maybe she's closer than anyone thinks. Buried in someone's backyard, hidden in a crawl space, sealed in concrete, somewhere only one or two people know about, and those people are staying silent. One of them might be sleeping in their own bed tonight, going to work tomorrow, living their life, carrying that secret, that terrible, crushing secret. But secrets don't stay buried forever. People talk, people confess, people make mistakes, especially when the whole world is watching, especially when there's $1.1 million on the table, especially when the FBI is involved, especially when advanced DNA technology is closing in. Nancy Ellen Guthrie, born January 27, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky. Married to Charles Guthrie at age 21. Became a widow at 46, raised 3 children alone, lived independently for 38 years after her husband died. Never remarried because she said no one could replace Charles. She was proud, independent, fierce. She taught her children to work hard, be self-reliant, don't expect handouts, earn your way. And when someone allegedly asked her for a handout, for another loan, for more money to bail them out of financial problems, she said no. She drew a line. She refused. Did that decision cost Nancy Guthrie her life? Did saying no to a loan request result in her being violently attacked, possibly killed, and her body hidden somewhere in the desert? Nancy deserves to be found. She deserves to be laid to rest next to Charles in a proper burial. She deserves a funeral, a memorial, a gravestone with her name. She deserves justice, not just for her, but for every elderly person who trusts their family, who believes they're safe in their own home, who thinks their children will protect them, not harm them. Her children deserve answers. Savannah deserves to stop wondering every single day whether her mother is alive or dead. Annie deserves to clear her name if she's innocent.
deserves to prove she had nothing to do with this. Cameron deserves closure, deserves to grieve properly.
Or deserves to move forward. If you have any information, anything at all, even if it seems small or insignificant, contact the FBI Tucson Field Office. The number is 623-466-1999. There's a $1 million family reward, $100,000 FBI reward, total of $1.1 million. For information, for tips, for answers. Someone out there knows something, someone saw something that night, someone heard something, someone was told something. Maybe it's a friend, a family member, a co-worker, someone who's been carrying this burden, this knowledge, this guilt. Now is the time to come forward. Now is the time to do the right thing, because Nancy Guthrie deserves justice, and whoever did this deserves to be held accountable. Share this video with everyone you know. Post it on social media. Send it to your friends, your family, your co-workers, because somewhere, someone knows something. Someone has that one piece of information that could break this case wide open. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The DNA results are being processed right now. Advanced testing. Genealogy databases. The same technology that caught the Golden State Killer. When those results come back, when they identify the DNA, when they make an arrest, you need to be here. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you think happened. Do you believe the family was involved? Do you think the loan request story is true? Do you think Tommaso did it? Do you think it was someone else? Do you think Nancy is still alive? This case is going to be solved. The evidence is there. The technology exists. The investigators are dedicated. The FBI doesn't give up. Someone is going to make a mistake. Someone is going to talk. Someone is going to confess. And when that happens, Nancy Guthrie will finally get the justice she deserves. This is not over. This case is active. This investigation is ongoing. And the person who did this, they're living on borrowed time. Justice is coming for Nancy Guthrie.